So, good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure to me to be your lecturer for today about the table of specification or TOS and its very foundation and support, which is known as the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. So here is the content outline for my topics for today. It includes the following: we have the introduction, followed by the Bloom's taxonomy, the table of specification, and the steps in preparing a table of specification. Anyway, after this lecture, I will be providing you with a copy of my PowerPoint, including the my TOS and the questions that I included in my examination. Okay, so let's have the introduction. Anyway, um, I just want to provide you with some information about the um, the domains of education. Okay. So we are considering three important domains when it comes to education. The first one is we have what we call the cognitive domain, wherein we are focusing and concentrating regarding the cognitive achievements or the ability of the minds of our students. And the next thing is what we call the affective domain, which is mainly concentrating with the heart, including the teachings about morality, ethical standards, and good moral characters. Okay, and then the other domain of education is what we call the um, psychomotor, wherein it is greatly concerning with the skills, the work of the hands, or the other parts of the body. Okay, so anyway, I think you would agree to me if I say that teaching is not an easy work to do. Okay, so when it comes to teaching and learning process, it is important that we should follow or be guided by what we call objectives. Starting from our instructional materials, going down to our um, teaching strategies, followed by the learning activities. And of course, we also have this what we call the assessment tool or the examination that measures the level of achievement of our students when it comes to our objectives. Okay. So anyway, there are these problems that we typically encounter when we fail to be guided by what we call objectives in our lectures and lessons. So let me identify to you one by one the common problems or complaints that is mentioned by the students after the examination. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Okay, the first problem is it has something to do with the distribution of questions in reference to the discussed topics. Okay, so the rule of the thumb regarding the distribution of questions or the question that must be taken from each topic should be directly proportional with the time that we spent in teaching the topic. Okay, so technically, the topics that we discuss with most of the time should have most number of items in the examination. But if we are not going to be guided by the table of specification, we tend to do the opposite. So that's why the common complaints of student is, ang karaniwan nilang linya pagdating dito is, nag-review pa naman ako dun sa topic na yun pero wala pa lang lalabas. No? And that is something that we are trying to prevent. And it should be, and our examination should be guided with the table of specifications. Okay. And then next is the level of difficulty of the questions. Okay. So when it comes to the level of difficulties, there's this what we call gap between our examples, our level of teachings, in comparison with the question that we include in our examinations. No? So I'm not saying that there is something wrong with providing hard questions. Wala namang masama doon. Specifically if we want to gauge kung hanggang saan talaga yung naabot nila. Okay? So, I think my suggestion regarding this matter is siguro hindi naman lahat dapat mahirap. No? So, hindi naman majority ng question is sobrang hirap talaga because we all know that there is this consequence when the students realize that no matter how hard or what effort he consumes in reviewing, if the question is very hard that cannot be answered, technically nawawalan sila ng gana to study. No? Pero meron din naman na talagang kung alam nila ang teacher mahirap magbigay ng question, mas pinag-iigihan nila. Maganda kung doon sila sa positive mapunta, but there are students na imbis na makita nila yung um, good things, dun sila napupunta sa ibang bagay. So that's why pinaghahanda na lang nila kung paano sila mangongopya. So that's the bad thing. Okay. So why is it that there are instances that we have very difficult questions? Okay. So that is because we fail to apply the objectives. So maybe the content of the question contains something that is not included in the objective. So that is the tendency. Okay. So, ang hirap lang dito ay darating tayo sa point wherein kahit yung teacher hindi niya masagot yung question. Okay? So that's why I remember one of my instructors when I was in college. What I like about this instructor was after the examination, maybe after 1 week, he gave time to discuss the examination. He answered it in the board actual computation. So everybody is very excited, and for the two things, they will realize their mistakes and they will learn from their mistakes. So that is a good thing. Okay, and then so that's it for the level of difficulty of the question. Always be guided with the objectives. Okay, and then for number 3, unfamiliar test items and items included in the examination. I think when it comes to this matter, baka ano lang to, it has something to do with honest mistake lang siguro. Because sometimes we tend to put questions that we thought na ituro natin, pero at some point hindi pala, no? Technically, kapag ka ang questions, kukunin mo doon sa sinabi mo, no? Kumbaga kunyari wala sa module, and then ang gusto mo is you want to test the students if they are really listening to your words, no? And then ang gagawin mo is hindi mo siya isama doon sa kanilang handouts or module. So tapos sama mo siya sa exam. It is a good thing if you mention it in the class, no? But the bad thing is if you fail to mention it. So technically, if you have so many sections na tuturuan, kunyari 4 na section, baka nabanggit mo sa section A and B, and then you fail to mention it in section C and D. Okay, so that is the disadvantage of having such unfamiliar questions. So anyway, technically when it comes to teachers, ano lang to, honest mistake lang siguro. Okay. And then number 4 is complexity of test item construction. And I think it has nothing to do with the TOS or the contents or the scope of our lessons. The tendency of having this complex question pertains to using at some point words that are very hard to understand, yung mga highfalutin words. And then sometimes we tend to use long statements and we fail to clarify the given. So instead of pointing the students to the correct paths, nami-mislead sila because of the way we express our thoughts in our examinations. Okay, so here are the common complaints of students after the examination, and for the items 1 to 3, maybe we can solve it through the use of the table of specifications. Okay. So let's proceed with the Bloom's taxonomy first, which is I can say one of the most important parts when it comes to TOS. Yung nakikita niyo sa screen, yun yung bago. Okay, so yung kasing Bloom's taxonomy, it has its evolution starting from 1956 to 2001. It was started by Bloom and it was revised by his 2 students, Cratwell and Anderson. Yung nakikita niyo sa harap ninyo, that is the Cratwell and Anderson. Although they are directly related to one another, and let me show it to you. Okay, so first one is in 1956, yung nasa kaliwa, that was formulated by Bloom, and then yung nasa kanan, yung bago in 2001, that was formulated by Cratwell and Anderson. Okay, so let us compare the two. Okay, so if you will observe, from the bottom going to the top, the level is become harder, and if you will observe, from knowledge going to the next level, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, you will observe that from the simplest one, it becomes the most complex, which is from knowledge to evaluation, and from the most concrete to the most abstract. Okay? So makita natin yung kanilang arrangement. Hanggang tumataas yung level, pahirap ng pahirap. Okay. So what is the difference between the two? Okay. When it was revised by the students of Bloom, according to them, creator synthesis is much higher compared to evaluates or evaluation, and I agree with that. No? Okay, so And then the other things that they apply when it comes to the old Bloom's taxonomy is they change the noun to verb. For example, knowledge, remember, this one is noun and then this one is verb. And then we have comprehension and then we have understand, application, apply, and so on. Okay, so that's it. Okay, but we will be utilizing the 1956 Bloom's taxonomy, which is a common practice of Bulacan State University with its TOS. Okay, so let's have the details of this Bloom's taxonomy, and let me provide you with examples of those questions. Okay, so for the knowledge, okay, so they are saying that knowledge is the lowest level when it comes to Bloom's taxonomy and must not be given with enough attention compared to the others. But I think I disagree with that because you will not be able to climb the other levels or to step up with the other levels if you don't know the knowledge. Okay, so knowledge or remembering, simple recalling. Okay, so why? Let me provide you with a concrete example. For example, the student is let's say as the student is good when it comes to analysis or evaluation of a certain problem in engineering. But if that student will fail to remember the formula that must be applied to the problem, everything will come to failure. So that's why it is also important that we give value when it comes to knowledge, although it has the lowest level in the cognitive domain under the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, so let me provide you with this one. When it comes to knowledge, we need to memorize 3 R's na. So what are these 3 R's? We have recalling, restating, remembering. Ganun lang kasimple. Hindi kailangan masyadong mag-isip. Okay. Kailan ka pinanganak? Kailan pinanganak nanay mo? Saan ka pinanganak? Kailan namatay si Rizal? Something like that. All you have to do is recall. You don't have to analyze it. Just recall it and that's it. Okay? And then when it comes to 3 R's, we are greatly focusing with facts. Okay? So when we say facts, we're dealing with terms, dates, names, and places. Okay? And we also have this series of steps in doing an activity or process. Maybe you're asking me, sir, when it comes to series of steps, parang it is considered as higher compared to knowledge, no? But the answer to that is no, because when it comes to series of steps, we already have those lists of steps, no? And it is existing in our books, in our lectures. All you have to do is read it and then you memorize it. You don't have to understand it. You just list a series of steps. For example, how to use the lathe machine. Okay, so all you have to do is to memorize all the steps in operating the lathe machine. And that's all. Okay. And then let's have the example. Who invented the diesel engine? This question simply requires what we call a recall. And we all know that the person who invented the diesel engine is Rudolf Diesel. Inalala mo lang, hindi mo kailangan mag-analyze, hindi mo kailangan intindihin yun. Okay? And then next is, how to measure the thickness of a metal plate using a vernier caliper. Okay, all you have to do is to list all the methods of list all the methods of performing the task as stated in the examination, and that's it. And then, why did Will Smith slap Chris Rock during the Oscar 2022? Sir, that is a question why. Why did you include that in knowledge? Because the information is already available. It is already written in the newspaper. It is available in the internet, in many websites, in YouTube. All you have to do is to retrieve it, read it, and then provide it. That's all. Okay? Because the reason is a fact. Okay? And the next is use WH words. So we have what, when, and where for recalling, and then why for retrieving, and then how for listing. Okay? And then let's proceed with the next level, which is called comprehension. Actually, yung pinakamadali yung knowledge, no? Pinakamadali siyang gawa na exam. Technically, kung ang question mo ay more on terms, no? Okay? So, siguro kung puro terms, ang mahirap doon is kung paano mo siya itataas. Okay? I-level up into comprehension, going to application analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Okay? So let's have the comprehension. Okay. So level 2 comprehension, I just want you to put your attention to these words. We have interpret, summarize, infer, classify, compare, and explain. Okay? Ito ang mga keywords na karaniwang ginagamit natin sa ating objectives. And at some point, we can also utilize this in our assessment tools or examination. Okay. So when it comes to comprehension, it is a way of getting the meaning of the information by interpreting what was learned. Okay? So umakyat ka na ngayon ng level. Okay? Una, all you have to do is to remember it, to recall it. But now, you're trying to understand it. For example, a ball pen. Okay, can you recall a piece of ball pen? Okay, so of course, you can recall a ball pen, how it looks, what type of ball pen that is. Okay, so when it comes to interpreting, instead of simply recalling, you try to dig deeper. No, you try to understand how are you going to use it, what is the logic behind its design, and etc. Okay, that is something which is higher compared to simply remembering something. Okay, wherein you put some interpretation to a certain event, to a certain thing, certain matter. Okay, so let's have the example. Select the best definition of capacitor. For example, you provide this question to your student, and then you provide them with the choices. You cannot answer this question if you don't really understand what capacitor means. Okay, and at the same time, if you provided the students with a question wherein it seems that all the items are correct, no, all the choices are correct, no. So that's why what the student will do is he will try to match what he understands about capacitor with the choices. And then he will try to classify it. He will try to rank the choices based on the information that they are providing, what a capacitor really means. Okay? So i-check niya yon word for word, and then i-compare niya doon sa ibang choices, which among them provides the best definition of capacitor. And that is classifying, which is under the cognitive level of understanding. Okay? And then next is what the line necessity is the mother of invention means. So maybe some of us will be providing different answers regarding this, no? So ito talaga, understanding talaga, because you need to interpret the line necessity is the mother of invention. But first, you need to understand the line. You need to define all the words that is being utilized. And then you will try to recall from the past how it is being described, how it is being taught by the teacher, or how do you see it when you read it in an article. Okay, so that's it. So that's how it will fall under understanding by merely interpreting it. Okay, and then number 3. Which of the following statements represent the main idea of Einstein's law of relativity based from the read article? May term na ginamit dito, main idea, no? Okay, so ibig sabihin, you read the article about Einstein's law of relativity, and then you need to figure out kung ano yung main thought niya. And then you cannot choose the best options as provided if you don't really understand what you read, no? And then the main idea, it is dependent on your understanding of the entire article. Hindi mo siya masasummarize kung hindi mo talaga naintindihan. Lalo na kung English, no? Wherein it requires too much effort than Tagalog articles, no? So that's why you can only get the main idea, you can summarize it if you really understand what you read about Einstein's law of relativity, and then you can relate it with the choices that were provided in the question. Okay, then let's proceed with the application. Okay. So application, ito lang, tandaan natin yung 3 terms na to. Pero meron pa akong mga terms na ibibigay that I think can help you in formulating your objective leading to your questions. Implement, use, and execute. Okay? So yun yung mga importanteng word na dapat gamitin natin when we're dealing with application. Ano ba talaga tong application na to? The learner makes use of the knowledge in a different way from what was learned. For example, you lecture the students about this topic, and then you provide the concrete example. What the student will do is he will try to use the knowledge, the ideas that you provided them in a different situation or scenario, and that is application. Okay, so let me provide you with an example. Aside from the geometry of movements, ay ang topic dito sa kinematics to. Aside from the geometry of movements of an internal combustion engine, what is the other way that the slider crank mechanism can be utilized? Yung nakikita niyo po dyan sa yung gumagalaw dyan sa kanan, that is a representation of a slider crank mechanism. And most of the machineries or machines in mechanical are dependent in this mechanism. Okay. So what are you going to do with this is, aside from the example that you provided with the student, which is an internal combustion engine, you try to make them provide with the other applications of this internal combustion, of this slider crank mechanism. Actually, we have other examples. We have other applications, like we can use it as pressor. We can also use it in reciprocating compressor, reciprocating pump, and etc. Okay, and technically, it is also utilized in the design for the different thesis of the students. Okay, so applying the knowledge that you gain into other ways aside from the provided example. Okay, so and then next is this one, solve for B using the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so alam naman natin when it comes to triangle, meron niyang mga bahagi. This 7 cm is called the hypotenuse. And then this 15 cm is called the altitude. And we have the B, which is the base. Okay, base and altitude are known as the legs of the triangle, and 17 cm is the hypotenuse. Technically, when we provided the students with the idea about Pythagorean theorem, ang karaniwang ipinapasolve natin is yung hypotenuse. Okay? Which is Pythagorean theorem is equivalent to c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Okay? So, provide tayo ng example paano hanapin to. And then later on, we will provide them with a question wherein they will try to solve the other parts of the triangle using that Pythagorean theorem. Okay? So, ganun lang siya kasimple. Or, we will provide them with other scenarios wherein they can use Pythagorean theorem to solve a certain problem. Karaniwan kapag kayong formula, gagamitin mo siya sa problem, magpo-fall kagad siya sa application, no? Doon na kagad. For example, ano pa ba mga formula ang ginagamit natin sa mga subjects natin? Bernoulli's equation, okay? Kapag pinagamit mo sa bata yon sa ibang sitwasyon aside from your example, magpo-fall na siya sa application, or it can go in a higher level. Depende doon sa paraan ng pag-iisip ng bata. Ang lagi nating i-consider is anong level ng pag-iisip ang kanyang gagamitin for him or her to figure out the correct answer. Okay. So yun yung lagi nating itatanong sa sarili natin when we are trying to make the questions. Okay? Ay kailangan lang ba naaalala niya yun? O kailangan ba naiintindihan niya? Okay, so ganun. Next is, could the triangle have side lengths of A equals 4, B equals 8, and C equals 2? Yung mga letters po dyan, that is for the sides of triangle. Okay, so ngayon, how is it going to fall under application? Okay, because you need to apply a certain rule, no? A certain idea para malaman mo kung meron ba talagang triangle na mag-i-exist using these sides of the triangle. Okay, so we have here what we call the triangle inequality theorem, no? Kailangan pag pinag-add natin yung dalawang sides, dapat mas malaki siya doon sa pangatlong side. For example, yung A at B 12. Okay, good, mas malaki sa 2. Next is 4 plus 2, 6. Hindi na pwede kasi mas malaki yung third side sa kanila. Ibig sabihin, no triangle exists. So paano ba magsak sa application yan? Simple lang. ginamit mo yung triangle inequality, yung nalalaman mo about triangle inequality for you to arrive at the final answer or for you to conclude if it is going to provide you with a triangle with the following sides as provided. Okay? And then let's proceed with analysis. Okay? When it comes to analysis, ang ginagawa natin dito is we are trying to broken down a certain concept into different parts. China-chop natin siya or binabaklas. Okay? So for us to understand it more. Okay? So when it comes to analysis, ito yung mga terms na mahalaga. We have deorganize, find, integrate, and compare. Okay? So pwede na natin yung gamitin sa ating mga objectives. Anyway, before I continue, yung unang tatlo na na-mention ko kanilang tatlong level, we have knowledge, followed by comprehension, and then we have the application. Those three levels are included with what we call the lower order thinking skills. From 4 to 6, we have the cognitive levels for the HATS or the higher order thinking skills. Yung kanina LATS, yung unang tatlo, and then the next three is HATS or higher order thinking skills. Okay, so when it comes to analysis, the learner breaks down the information to understand the lesson. Okay, so parang machine lang siya. For example, a certain machine, for you to understand it more, the way a machine works, you need to break it down into its component parts. And then you will understand its parts. And then when you do that, you will be able to fully comprehend how it is working, its design, its function, and how it serves a certain purpose. Okay. So, i-chop mo lang siya, parang gano'n. I-chop lang natin yung certain concept into its parts para lalo natin siyang maintindihan. Okay. For example, a technical report was submitted by a group of engineers about the explosion of a water retort. Actually, nangyari ito sa totoong buhay. Based from the report, determine if the engineers must accept the hypothesis that the design of the equipment contribute a lot to the incident. Okay. So, ano ba yung focus natin dito? Gusto nating malaman kung is it correct to blame the design of the equipment for its explosion. Actually, component lang siya. Okay? Ang main thought dito is explosion. Okay, ngayon, what the students will do is he will try to analyze or to break down the explosion matter, the explosion of water retort into different components that contribute to this unexpected incident. So ano yung mga bagay na yan? For example is, okay, the first thing that you need to consider is there any mistake regarding the operation of the water retort? Is it inconsistent with the standards of operating the equipment? Okay, so that is part number 1. And then part number 2 is you need to check if all the parts are working properly. Yung bang pressure gauge, is it working properly? Yung burner, how about when it comes to the pressure relief valve, which is very important and which has something to contribute for the safety of the equipment. And then the next thing is you check the parts. You check if the thickness of the vessels is inconsistent with the codes that is accepted outside or inside the country, like the ASME code or the PSME code. Okay, so those are the things that we need to consider, okay, before we decide if it is really the design that really contributes with the incident. No. So that's why from that explosion of water retort, we need to break it down from the different parts that contributes to that unexpected events. Okay, so that is breaking things into parts, analyzing all the contributing factors for that very thought of the explosion. Okay, so that's it. And then next is number 2. Based on the provided circuit diagram, what will happen next if it is subjected to a test? Hindi na ako naglagay ng circuit diagram. Okay. So in this question, meron tayong circuit diagram, and then ang tatanungin natin yung estudyante, ano mangyayari kung itetest natin to sa ganitong kuryente or sa ganitong ayun, sa ganitong amount ng current. But not very much familiar when it comes to circuit diagram. Okay. So of course, before he decides kung ano ba ang mangyayari is kailangan niyang i-check mismo yung circuit diagram, yung different parts, yung loads, yung connection ng mga wirings, okay? And then kung ano pa yung mga components na ilalagay natin. And then through that checking for those parts or those components, he will be able to understand it more and he will be able to predict what will happen when it is subjected to a certain current. Okay? So that's it. And then let's proceed with synthesis. Actually, yung synthesis, kabaliktaran daw ito ng analysis. Kasi yung analysis, china-chop natin siya into different parts para mas maintindihan natin ang certain concept. But when it comes to synthesis, we are trying to combine all the parts to arrive at a certain idea or knowledge. Okay? Pinagsasama-sama naman natin dito yung mga parts. Yung synthesis, ang other term na ginagamit natin dito is create. No? Okay. So for example, here, we have the different terms. Ito palagi natin itong ginagamit sa mga examinations natin or sa ating objective. Design, construct, make, and produce. To be honest with you, you are already doing all these things, no? But you are not very much particular kung saan kayong cognitive level nagpo-fall, no? Pero ginagawa nyo na talaga siya. Knowing engineering pa, yung mga questions natin talagang higher level, no? All we have to do is to identify kung saan ka bang cognitive level magpo-fall. Pero ginagawa mo na talaga ito sa iyong mga practices, hindi ka lang aware pa. Okay? So next is, the learner creates new ideas from what was previously learned. Yung mga natutunan mo nung nakaraan, pagsasama-samahin mo para makakreate ka ng new idea. Okay? So, ang isang magandang halimbawa nito is kapag tayo ay nagdidisenyo. No? So kapag nagdisenyo tayo, we are consulting different engineering concepts and theories. And then, combining them all together to arrive at a certain design that will solve a certain problem. Okay. Sa thesis, ginagawa natin to, lalo na sa mga thesis natin. Hindi lang naman sa thesis, pati sa ibang subject wherein design and construction is the main concern. Okay. And then, let's have the example. Design and lay out a water supply system that can satisfy the requirements of the plumbing fixtures of a 4-story building with the following data. Okay, so hindi ko na nilagay dito yung mga data ha. Okay, so dito ang objective natin is we need to make a layout of water supply system. Okay, design and make a layout of a water supply system. Before you make that design, you need to consider many things. So balik ka sa nakaraan, ano yung mga tinuro sa'yo na may kinalaman dito. Okay, isa-isahin natin. Una, you need to consult the plumbing code. Okay, so to check if there are principles that can be applied to your design and layout. Next, when we are talking about plumbing fixtures, as long na tumataas ang building is tumataas din ang kanyang pressure requirements. No? So ibig sabihin nitong plumbing fixtures anyway, ito yung water closet, inidoro, yung showers, faucets, and etc. No? So meron niya mga pressure requirement. At kapag ka 4-story building, technically hindi yan kayang supplyan ng mga na ordinary source lang sa mga residential houses. So that's why kailangan mong maintindihan ang principle ng designing a pump, no? Pump system. So ibig sabihin kailangan meron din tayong basic knowledge sa pump design. So we have the Bernoulli's equation, which is the foundation of the design for the pumps, okay? And then aside from that, you also need to understand the different types of, aside from the fixtures, you need also to understand yung ginagamit natin na pipes and mga fittings. Okay, pag pinagsama-sama natin lahat yon, yung knowledge mo sa plumbing code, yung knowledge mo sa iba't ibang klase ng fixtures, yung pressure requirement, including yung mga pipelines and fittings, and then yung knowledge mo when it comes to designing a pump, pag pinagsama-sama natin, you will be able to arrive to what we call the water supply system that can be utilized by the 4-story building for its plumbing fixtures. Okay, so that's it. Combining, the learner will combine the lessons learned from the past to solve the existing problem in the present. Okay, and then for number 2, construct a flow chart that suggests the effective implementation of production processes for a certain boiler manufacturing facility. Okay. So ngayon, gagawa tayo dito ng flowchart. So ano yung mga kailangan natin pagsamang-samahin na konsepto for us to arrive in this effective flowchart for this production process for a boiler manufacturing facility? First, you need to know the basic principle of creating the flowchart. Yung mga ginagamit natin na shapes, ano yung meaning ng mga shapes na yan. And then the next thing is, you also need to understand how a boiler manufacturing facility works. Starting from the engineering, going down to the cutting, then followed by welding, production, and then ended with the quality assurance. Okay? So those are the things that we need to understand. When you combine that, your knowledge in flowchart, and then your knowledge in boiler manufacturing facility procedures, you will be able to arrive in a more effective flowchart that implements the most suitable implementation of production process in a boiler manufacturing facility. Okay? Combining them all together to arrive at a certain idea or a certain solution in a specific problem. Okay? So that's it. And then, let's proceed with the last level or yung pinakamataas according to Bloom's Taxonomy in 1956, which is evaluate. Okay. So pagdating dito sa evaluate, wala tayong masyadong problema dyan. Dahil ang ginagawa natin ay naghahanap tayo ng mali. Okay. And then ang sabi nila doon daw tayo magaling mga Pilipino, maghanap ng mali. So that's why dito tayo mahusay when it comes to evaluate. Okay. So let's start with the word reflect, no? When it comes to reflection, you are doing it, I'm not saying every day, but at some point in your life. For example, is you try to review your teaching style if it is really effective to the students. So when you do that, you try to make some assessment of yourself if you are good when it comes to presenting your thoughts and ideas to the students. And that is one way of reflection. And the objective of reflecting is not only to reminisce the past, but also to provide some improvements in the way you conduct a certain thing, no? And in this way, you're teaching strategies, and that is a reflection, no? So, and then next is you try to criticize or assess. When we criticize, we try to we try to figure out the mistakes for the intention of correcting it or for the intention of making it better. Okay, so the learner makes decision based on reflection, criticism, and assessment. Okay, so let's have the example. In an experiment conducted about the determination of viscosities of liquid fuels, what went wrong during the data gathering procedures? Okay, so technically kapag nagpapakonduct tayo ng mga experiments, ang pinapagawa natin ng conclusions ay yung mga data na nakuha natin, no? Okay, and then we try to relate it with the existing theories about, for example, viscosities. And then, ako ang ginagawa ko is, I also ask the students to provide with the assessments or evaluation with the way they conduct the experiments. And it should be checked in consistence with the standards. Sinunod ba nila yung mga procedure na sinabi ko according to the standards? Tama ba yung paraan nila ng pag-measure ng viscosity gamit yung viscometer? Something like that, no? Because the objective here is to improve the way you conduct the tests or the experiments so you will be able to obtain a more reliable results. Okay? So that is the good things when it comes to evaluation, not only when it comes to the results, but also with the way we conduct the experiment. So what went wrong during the data gathering procedure? Okay, so when it comes to this test, pwede kang magbigay doon ng mga instances or sabihin natin short paragraph kung paano ginawa yung experiment, and then titingnan ng bata doon kung saan nagkamali. Ano ba yung mali doon sa ginawa nung nag-perform na experiment? Yun yung pwede natin gawin. The learner will criticize the performed experiment procedures in accordance with an accepted standard to improve the outcome. Okay. And then the next is for the evaluation. We have, for example, you provided them with a research journal or patent document or any selection about an author's point of view. You will ask them, do you agree with the author? Why and why not? No? So ang gagawin ngayon ng students dito is they will try to reflect with what they know, with what they learn from their teacher or instructor, with what they read, and then they will check if it is consistent with the statements of the author of the journal patent document or any selection. Okay? So yun yung gagawin niya, and then they will try to justify it. Why? No? Why do you disagree with the author? Because according to what I learned about, for example, about the Newton's law of motion, it should be going this way. Okay, so just like that. Okay. And then, in accordance to the presented research proposal, what is the best title from the choices below? Okay, so kapag pala gagawa ka din ng title, it is a way of evaluation, no? So ano yung mga ine-evaluate natin? Okay, so you check kung yung what is the unang-una sa lahat, what is the purpose of your research? Okay, and then next thing that you need to check is who are the end users? How it works? Okay? So what are the contributing factors for its success? And then through those information, you are going to arrive to the best title for your research proposal. Okay. So that's it. And then, yung part na to, ito yung tinatawag na Bloom's Taxonomy of Educational Objective na yung sa cognitive domain natin. Ano ko na lang siya, ipakita ko na lang ng mabilis since ibibigay ko naman yung PowerPoint sa inyo. You can use it in making your objectives. And those objectives are very important. Kung pwede nga per topic, we have the objectives. Kahit 2, 3, ganoon. No? And then we have the objectives, and those objectives will guide us in creating our instructional materials like the modules, and it will also guide us with our teaching strategies, our learning activities, and for the last part, yung ating assessment tool o yung ating examination. Okay. So that's why I encourage during the discussion, it is important that we mention to the students what are the objectives. If my memory serves me right, during our modules, when the pandemic strikes, ginagamit na natin to dun sa ating mga module, no? Nilalagay na natin dun yung mga objectives. And that is a good practice because nag-gauge ng students kung ano ba yung dapat niyang ma-achieve doon sa binibigay natin na learning materials o doon sa mga bagay na ituturo natin sa kanila. Okay? Kung anong level, kung hanggang saan level. Kung analysis ba, evaluation, synthesis, or kung kailangan lang silang magkabisa, something like that, hanggang knowledge level lang. Okay. So, ito yung mga levels, and then nilagay ko sa kanan yung pwede natin gamitin doon sa ating objectives, para sa objectives ng mga topics. And then we can also apply it with our questions. Okay. So next level is we have the comprehension. Here is the meaning, and we have here the illustrative terms na pwede nating gamitin. Okay. So yan. And then levels is next is application. We have the illustrative behavioral terms na kagawing kanan. Okay. Pwede natin gamitin sa ating mga objectives and questions. And then proceeding with the higher order thinking skills, analysis, level 4, illustrative behavioral terms sa kanan, pwedeng gamitin natin. Hindi lang to, may mga pwede pang available. Ito lang yung na-include ko dito. Okay. So next level is synthesis, putting together parts to form a whole, ability to correlate something. Okay, so we have here the illustrative behavior terms sa gawing kanan. Generate, kita natin dyan. Generate, designs, creates. Okay. And then for the last level, we have the evaluation. And then we have the illustrative behavior included at the right side. Okay. So that's it. So next is let's proceed with the table of specifications. Okay, so let us define it first. Table of specification or TOS is a test map that guides the teacher in constructing a test. Mapansin natin yung term na ginamit na test map. When we are trying to use a map, it means that we have this what we call direction. No? Iniiwasan natin na maligaw. Okay? But in this case, this test map serve as the guide in constructing tests. Ano ba ang mga palatandaan na ikaw ay naliligaw kapag gumagawa ka ng tests? Number 1, you tend to provide more questions for those topics that you discuss with the least amount of time. Okay? So kailangan sundin natin yung direct proportionality ng ating topics, kung gaano katagal natin siya tinuro, doon sa number ng exam na, number ng questions na i-alat natin sa topic na yon. So yun yung isang palatandaan na naligaw ka. And then pangalawa is failure to align your questions with your objectives. Okay? So is it going to be in a cognitive level of analysis, or is it going to be the cognitive level of evaluation? Okay. So that's why it is important that you have the objectives before you make your instructional material, before you teach the students, and before you make the examination. Consistency must be followed and consistency must be followed and be guided by objectives. Okay? Para di maligaw. Okay? And then another meaning, which is the same from the previous one, is a plan, a guide, or a blueprint to define as clearly as possible the scope, the objectives to the contents. Okay, so that's it. So ito yung mga most common prepared table of specification. So first is we have the one-way table of specification. Let me read it and then let me provide you with a concrete example. Here it contains the following. We have the course contents, number of hours taught or number of class sessions, number of test items, points, and the placement of an item. Okay, so let's have it. A one-way table of specification. Okay. Mapansin natin dito sa kaliwa, we have the content area, no? Andiyan yung topic A, B, C, and D. And then we have the number of hours. For example, topic A, tinuro mo siya 8 hours. Topic B, tinuro mo siya 6 hours. Topic C, tinuro mo 4 hours. D, 7. Okay? And then, kukunin natin yung total numbers. Mamaya, ipapakita ko sa inyo yung step by step on how to do this. Bigyan ko lang kayo ng konting dito. Konting method. Okay? So next is number of items. Ngayon, paano ba malaman tong number of items na yan? 16, 12, topic B, then topic C, topic D, 14. Observe natin, ano yung pinakamatagal mong tinuro sa lahat ng topics? Topic A, no? So we have here 8 hours. So pansinin natin, out of 50 questions, ang may pinakamaraming question is topic A. Kasi pinakamatagal mo siyang tinuro eh. Kaya 16 hours yung oras niya. Okay. So ngayon ang question, paano ba natin malalaman kung you have 50 questions, paano mo malalaman kung ilang percent ang manggagaling sa topic A? Okay. So ito, tingnan mabuti ang gagawin ko. Okay. So gawin natin, 8 hours ang topic A. 8 divided by the total number of hours na itinuro mo yung lahat ng topics na yan. Okay, for example, gagawin kang midterm exam. Bago yung midterm exam na yan, in-include mo na yung mga topic. And then, gaano katagal mo sila itinuro sa bata? 25 hours. So, we have 8 hours divided by 25. Anong sagot? 0.32. So, that is 32%. No? Kaya nakalagay dito, guys, ay 32%. Okay? So, ngayon, ibig sabihin, yung lahat ng questions, sa kabuuan ng lahat ng mga tanong mo, 32% ang manggagaling kay topic A. Ilan ba lahat yung questions mo? 50. 50 lahat yun, di ba? So ngayon, kukunin natin yung 32% ng 50. And that will give you 16 items for topic A. Okay? Isa pa, letter B naman. Sa letter B, tinuro mo siya ng 6 hours. Kabuuan mo 25 hours. So 6 divided by 25. Ilan yon? 0.24 or 24%. Ayan, nakikita natin 24%. So, ibig sabihin, sa lahat-lahat ng questions mo sa test, 24% manggagaling sa topic B. Okay, so kuhanin mo ngayon yung 24% ng 50. Ano lalabas? 12. So, ibig sabihin, 12 items ang manggagaling kay topic B. Last na, topic C. Ilang oras mo tinuro? 4 hours. 4 divided by 25. Ilan yon? So that is 0.16 or 16%. Ibig sabihin, 16% ng question mo ay manggagaling kay topic C. Sa lahat ng items na meron ka sa exam. So get the 16% of 50. Which is ito yung total items ng question ng ating exam. So 16% ng 50, 8 ang kalalabasan. Okay, so ganun. So, ituturo ko pa ulit siya mamaya para mas maalala. Okay? So, yung placement natin, lalagay lang natin dito. For example, test 1. Ilang items yan? 16, ano? So, ibig sabihin, yung placement mo dapat 16. Sa test 1, questions 1 to 8. And then sa test 2, questions 1 to 8. So, 16. Yun yung placement para sa 16 items na to. Okay? And then lahat yan ay tungkol kay topic A. And then for topic B naman, ilan yan? 12. So, sa test 1, 9 to 14. 6 yun, ano? 9 to 14, 6. Pagkatapos sunod naman is 9 to 14, 6 din. So, that is 12 items. Okay. Ito yung one-way table of specification. So, ngayon, let's try to differentiate it with what we call the two-way table of specification. Ito naman yon. Lahat yon ganun din. Ito lang nagkaiba, instructional objectives. Okay, so pakita natin. Yan, ganyan siya. Meron din yung content area, may number of hours taught, and then merong percentage of items. Yun yung kanina, 8 divided by 25, 32%, 6 divided by 25, 24%. The only difference ay itong gitna, which is what we call the cognitive domain. Nandun na yung objectives natin na kung saan yung mga objectives natin ay naka-align doon sa questions na gagawin natin. Okay, for example, dito, meron tayong, yung kanina ito din yun, ano? Same lang din. Ang pagkakaiba lang meron nitong part na to, yung Casey Apanse. Knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Okay, i-distribute mo lang tong 16. Siyempre, bago ka mag-distribute dyan, kailangan check mo muna kung ano yung mga objective na nilagay mo, kung saan magpo-fall. Yung objective is nag-fall sa knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, at synthesis. Kaya yan yung nilagyan niya ng mga questions, no? And then, yung mga questions na yan, kailangan i-align mo. Yung construction niyan, dapat naka-align doon sa iyong objectives. Ganun. Bilangin natin to 16 yan. Okay? And then yung 12, distribute mo na siya. 2 sa analysis, 3 sa application, 5 sa comprehension, 2 sa knowledge. Okay? So, ganun lang siya. 14 yan, distribute mo lang sila. And then, syempre, 50 items siya lahat-lahat. Okay? Next is steps in preparing a table of specification. Ito yung medyo masasabi kong critical part, kaya kindly listen carefully when it comes to the procedures. Okay. Una, ito yung recommended ko na table of specifications na gagamitin natin. Okay, so I just confirm ko lang kay Mags kung okay sa kanya to. On the other hand, yung nagkakaiba lang naman dyan sa mga table of specification coming from the other colleges or sa ibang university, ito lang, nagkakajumbo lang to. Ito, 1, 2. Tuturo ko sa inyo kung nagkakahalo-halo lang. Itong part na to, tsaka itong 2 nasa dulo. Minsan dyan, itong column number 3 napupunta sa column number 2, kaya column number 3 na napupunta din sa kabilang column. Yun lang talaga ang nag-iiba sa kanila, or at some case, yung terms na ginamit, nagbabago. Okay? So, ang parts nito, we need to consider is, first is the content outline. We have the number of hours taught, and then the percentage of items. And then sa gitna, yung ating cognitive domain. Okay, yung knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, system, and evaluation. Tandaan nyo lang, Casey Apanse. Casey Apanse. Yun na yun. Okay? And then we have the total number of items, and then the placement of the items. Okay. So, step by step tayo. Una, make a content. Yung gagawin ko dito, ang ipapakita ko lang sa inyo is, let me show to you my TOS. And then later, ibibigay ko yung exam, and then you can check my questions kung paano ko siya inalign doon sa aking mga objectives. Okay? Number 1, make a content outline of the subject matter which has been taught after a definite period of time. Okay, so ngayon, ano yung content outline natin? Ito yun. Content outline. Lagay mo dyan kung ano yung mga topics mo. Ito lang napili ko. Yung 4 na yan. Okay? So we have mechanism, mobility, vectors, displacement analysis. Ito yung mga topics na panggagalingan ng questions ko sa aking midterm examination. Okay, so let's continue. Next, determine the objectives, specific knowledge or skills to be tested. Okay, paano kaya yun? Ang ginawa ko dito sa mechanism, nilagay ko dito yung mga objectives ko. I think mas madali kasi sa akin to, parang yung iba ang ginagawa, nililista lang nila tapos nilalabelan lang nila knowledge, comprehension, ganun. Pwede rin naman yan. Pero ako parang for me is mas madali ko tong, para ka lang nagsusungka, madali ko siyang malalagyan ng question kasi may marka na kung saan ko ilalagay yung mga questions. For example, mechanism. In knowledge level, identify the basic terms in mechanism and machine elements. So ngayon makikita nyo doon sa ibibigay ko ng question na yung question ko, yung lagay kong question para dito ay may kinalaman sa knowledge, no? Wherein yung student ite-test nito yung kakayahan ng student na identify yung mga basic terms sa mechanism and machine elements. Okay? So dito ko siya nilagay. And then you can also check yung term na ginamit ko doon sa mga binigay ko na illustrative kanina, yung mabilis ko lang binigay, yung different levels sa knowledge, comprehension. You can use those terms para sa inyong objectives. For comprehension, understand, and the function of machine, mechanism, kinematic, links, and pairs. Application, relate the classification of kinematics. At ito yung mga keywords na ginamit ko, identify, meron dito sa comprehension, understand, application, relate, and illustrate para dun sa analysis. You can check it one by one, no, para ma-confirm mo. And then, tingnan natin tong sa displacement analysis ko. Pagdating sa evaluate, ginamit ko yung term na assess. Okay? Ito yung key term na ginamit ko. Ano i-assess niya? The performance of a machine and its mechanism to comply with a certain parameter or standard. Okay? So, ayan. And the best one who can do the best objective, syempre, yung instructor na nagtuturo ng subject. Okay? So, yun siya. Pwede nyo siyang i-check to dito, na. Okay. So, syempre, kapag mamaya, nag-distribute ako ng question dito sa mechanism, dito siya malalagay. Dito, tsaka dito, tsaka dito. Okay. Pwedeng dalawa, tatlo, isa, depende sa inyo. Okay. So, distribution, hawak nyo na siya. Okay, next is, decide the number of test items to be constructed. Okay. Pagkatapos kong i-identify yung topics, ang kasunod naman ay ito, ilang items yung gusto mong gawin para doon sa examination mo. Total items, lahat-lahat na, okay? So, dito nilagay ko 16 items. So, my test will be containing 16 questions, no, for my midterm exam. Okay? So, next, find the number of hours spent for each topic and the total number of hours spent for all the topics to be included in the test. Yung unang part na to, ang ibig sabihin is gaano katagal mo tinuro yung topic na yon, tapos yung pinakailalim na to, kunin mo yung sum ng lahat ng topic, yun lang yun. Okay? So for example, mechanism, tinuro ko ng 6 hours, mobility, 6 hours, vectors, 3, displacement, 9. Yan yung total hours na ginamit ko para ituro yung bawat topic na yan. And then you get the sum. Okay? So, ang ano ko dito, ang recommendation ko, kapag maglalagay tayo ng number of hours taught, I think we need to be consistent with our syllabus, no? Yung nasa syllabus natin, weeks yung nakalagay doon. Pero mabibilang na kagad natin siya. For example, mechanism, nilagay mo rin, tuturo mo siya ng 2 weeks. Kung ang mechanism ay merong 3 units, 3 lecture units, so malagay na natin doon, 2 weeks, 3 units, 3 oras may tuturo, pwede mo na kagad ilagay, 6 hours. Ganun, I think pwede na natin gamitin. O kunyari yung vectors, kunyari lang. You're going to teach vector for let's say 2 weeks, no? And then ganun din, 6 din pala kung 2 weeks kasi 3 lecture units. So 6 lalagay mo rito. Okay, ganun. Be consistent lang with the weeks tapos kung ano yung units natin. Okay. So lumalabas sa displacement analysis, 3 weeks ko siyang tinuro kasi per week meron akong 3 hours para ituro yan, kaya 9 ang kinalabasan. Okay? So we have here 24 hours, considering the sum of all the number of hours that is consumed or utilized to teach each topic. Okay? So next is compute the percentage of items per topic. So percentage of items per topic is equivalent to what? Number of hours spent for the topic for the topic divided by the total number of hours for all the topics included in the test times 100. Okay, para mas madali, ito natin check. Okay. For example, yung na-compute ko dito na percentage of items na manggagaling sa mechanism ay 25%. Okay? Saan ang galing yan? Dito nang galing yan. Okay? So percentage items in mechanism is equivalent to 6 hours. Dahil 6 hours ko siyang tinuro at yung total hours na tinuro ko yung lahat ng topics ay 24. Kaya 6 divided by 24 times 100. Kaya ngayon, 25% ng question ko ay manggagaling ngayon dito sa mechanism. Okay? So, yan. Pakita ko lang yung kabuuan ng computation na nagawa ko. Yan. So, dito naman sa vectors, since 3 hours mo siyang tinuro, and then ang kabuuan ng oras na ginamit mo sa lahat ng topics ay 24 hours. So, that is 3 divided by 24. That is equivalent to 12.5%. Times 100 mo na lang. Okay? And then for displacement, 9 divided by 24 times 100, 37.5%. Okay? So next step, compute the total number of items per topic. The total number of items per topic is equivalent to percentage of items per topic. Yun yung kinompute natin kanina. I-multiply mo siya saan? Sa total number of items in the tests. Kanina di ba ang sabi ko, yung test ko ay mayroong ilang items? 16. In-identify ko, no? And then ngayon, paano mo malalaman kung ilang question dito sa kabuuang 16 ay manggagaling sa mechanism? So lumabas sa computation ko, 4. Okay, paano ko nakuha yung 4 na yan? Simple lang. Total number of items in topic mechanism is equivalent to 16, ano? Kasi ito yung total number of items ng aking exam. Times mo siya ng 25% or 0.25. Yung percentage of items. Okay, kaya ang lumabas ay 4. Okay? So, 6 divided by 24, 25%. Then, kuhanin mo ang 25% ng kabuuang tanong sa iyong exam. That's it. And then, next is this one. Ganun lang din. Inano ko lang siya. Pinakita ko lang yung computation for the other topics. Ano ko lang kayo, minsan nagkakaroon dito ng pasobra, no? Kayo na lang yung magbalanse. No? Minsan, nagkakaroon ng konting parang minsan nadadagdagan ng isang question. Magulo pa kinuha mo isang di pala 16, 17. Kayo na lang yung mag-adjust. No? So, okay lang naman yan. Adjust na lang natin kapag sumusobra ng isang question, pwede nating bawasan. Okay. So, that's it. And then, distribute the number of items into different cognitive levels. Okay. Base doon sa ating objective. No? Ulitin ko, objective. Yun yung basihan natin. Ito yung ginawa ko. Sa mechanism, di ba na-compute natin kanina, 4 items yon. Yung 4 items, dinistribute ko ngayon sa knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis. Bakit dito ko sila dinistribute? Dahil yung aking objective ay patukoy sa knowledge, comprehension, application, and analysis. Like this one. Yan. Konting recall lang, kanina nung pinakita ko yung objective, nagpo-fall siya sa knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis. Kaya dapat, yung gagawin nating question is dito naka-align sa sa kinalalagyan ng objective natin. Kaya madali sa akin yung ganito kasi parang nagsusungka ka lang. Dito mo na lang ilalagay yung mga ano tawag doon, mga suso, parang ganoon, okay? So ganyan. Okay, so yan. Next is like this one. Kung i-check niyo yung objective ko, nilagay ko rito 4, no? Pag chinek yung objective ko, naka-fall siya under comprehension, application, analysis, and evaluate. No? Yung 4, doon ka dinistribute. And then, para sa mobility, para sa vectors naman, yung mga objective, yung objective na ginamit ko, 2 lang, no? Ito. So, sa inyo, hindi naman masama kahit konti lang objective, 3, mga ganun. I think hindi naman masama 3 or 2, 4. Okay, so, nasa ano pa rin yun, nasa instructor pa rin kung ano sa palagay niya ang pinaka-epektibong paraan para ituro yung topic sa mga bata. So, yan. Nasa sa atin yan. Okay? So, yan. Kapag ito ay ipinatong ko doon sa mga objective ko, makikita nyo na yan ko inilagay yung bawat isa. Okay? For example, ito kanina pinakita ko yung vectors. Dito nag-fall yung objective ko. Kaya dyan ko inilagay yung 2 question. Doon siya naka-align. Okay? So, yan. And identify the placement of each item from the listed topics. Yung placement, madali lang naman siya. For example, yung 4, iba na-distribute na natin siya. 1, 3, 6, 13 ko nilagay. Kasi meron ako ditong ginagamit na sistema kapag ka nagagawa ako ng questions. For example, ganito. Ito yung question number 1 ko, number 2 sa knowledge. Kasi mas madali for me to make question kapag ang una kong gagawin, puro knowledge lang muna. Para nakafocus lang ako doon sa mga specific terms na ginagamit sa knowledge. Hindi siya nagkakalabo-labo. Ganoon. And then para sa comprehension, sunod ko namang gagawin ito. Ito, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ito yan, no? 3, 4, and then 5. Okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yun yung method na ginagawa ko. Pero syempre, kanya-kanya tayo ng style kung ano sa palagay natin ang makapagbibigay sa atin ng convenience sa paggawa ng question. Okay? So, yun ang ano. So, technically, kahit higher order thinking skill, pwede tayong gumamit ng mga multiple choice. And then, para doon naman sa mga identification technically is magpo-fall under doon sa knowledge. Yan. And then problem solving, higher order na yan. Most likely application pataas, mga problem solving natin. And then, ang ma-advise ko when we are doing this, syempre pagka meron tayong mga quizzes, yung mga problem solving, we need to have this what we call rubrics, no? And that should be included in our syllabus. Kung paano natin siya gagradean. Because during one of the accreditation, yung bukod pa dong nakaraan, yung isa pa, yung accreditor, he was asking me to provide with the syllabus and then yung criteria, yung rubric sa syllabus, pagkatapos yung exam na ibinigay kung paano grinidan. Buti na lang nakuha ko kay Sir Ian. No? Shout out kay Sir Ian. No? Nakakuha ko ng question kaya may napakita ko sa kanya. Kasi hindi talaga naging practice minsan. Meron ngang mga cases from the past na doon tayo minsan nakatingin sa final answer. Kapag tama yung final answer, okay, 25 points. Okay, so kapag mali, 0. May mga ganong case, hindi naman lahat. No? Yun, parang ganun, okay. So, kasi when it comes to measuring the ability of the students to answer a certain item, lalo na kapag ang level niyan is synthesis design, meron dong mga parts na sa questions na syempre una, ang ilalabas muna ng bata is yung kakayahan niyang makaalala. Kunyari, yung sabihin natin na naalala niya yung formula, mga gano'n. Ano. And then sunod is yung understanding niya dun sa question. Aba, naalaman niya na pressure pala yun, P1 pala at P2 yun. No? Tapos susunod yung application, gagamitin na niya ngayon yung formula. Alam pala niyang gamitin yung formula. So yun, parang rubric is a matter of appreciating the ability of the student, no? Yung parang hanggang saan level ba yung naabot niya, no? Baka okay naman siya, medyo sumablay lang ng konti nung ginagamit na yung formula, mga ganun. Baka okay naman siya sa pag-identify at pag-analyze, pag-identify ng mga given sa pag-identify ng gagamitin ng formula. Baka okay naman siya doon. Nagkataon na mali siya sa pag-apply ng formula. Ganoon. So, yan, parang rubric is a way of appreciating kung ano yung level ng bata. Hindi lang doon sa dulo. Not only at the end wherein na-solve na niya and then he provided the correct answer for your problem-solving question. Mga ganun. Okay? So, yan siya. And then, yung placement, ito na yung ginawa ko. And then, of course, for number 9, construct the test items observing the specified objective in each topic. Okay, so dito naman po fall yung tinuro ko kanina about the Bloom's Taxonomy kung paano gagawa paano ko i-express yung mga question. And as I said, it is necessary that you consider before you make the question, you need to realize kung paano gagana yung pag-iisip ng bata. Anong level? I-recall lang ba niya? O i-apply niya yung certain formula para ma-solve yung certain problem? Mga ganon. Doon natin makikita kung anong level yung kanyang pagkakaintindi doon sa topic na binigay natin. Okay? And that will be the end of my presentation. I hope you learned something and then I'm now ready for your questions. Okay. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Adrian. That was very colorful, informative, and yet exciting. Siguro yung iba po dyan ay meron ng mga nasa isip na itatanong, but rather because of the presentation ay nagkaroon na sila ng enlightenment on what questions need to be answered by Sir Adrian. As this part or for this part of the program, the panel or this meeting is open for questions regarding about the TOS and as well as any questions that comes around from depending on the or based on the topic. Pwede rin pong maglagay sa chat box kung nahihiya po kayong magpa-open cam or magpa-voice reveal. Pwede po kayong chat na po ngayon for questions para mabasa po natin. Yan. Tingnan natin ang mga question. Baka may mga tanong po kayo na hindi nabanggit ni Sir Rian. Ayun.
Hello. May tanong po ako.
Ay, yes po.
Di ba since na online class tayo, so yung 3 hours mo, hindi mo yun natatapos ng 3 hours, 5 hours, I mean the 3 units, hindi mo naman yun natatapos ng 3 hours dahil, di ba, merong limitation tayo, lalo ng mga bata, sa gadget. So, paano yun? Narinig ko kanina kay Sir Adrian na kung ilang oras mo siyang diniscuss, so ganun din parang equal doon yung dami rin o tagal din na gagawin yun ng bata. Paano ba yun? Sir Adrian.
Hello? Hello?
Okay po. So, address ko lang po yung question ni Ma'am Sara po, ano? Tama po. Okay. So, yung kanina po yung binigay ko na oras ng, for example, 3 hours, that is an ideal, ideal number of hours that we need to consider when giving time for a certain topic, no? I don't think if I have the authority to provide the numbers regarding doon. Pero kanina po yung binigay ko, Ma'am Sara, na number is para po doon sa ating mga typical classes kapag ka tayo is hindi in pandemic condition. Yun po yung nakita ko. Pero kung ako po yung tatanungin, I think okay lang kung magsisettle pa rin tayo doon sa ideal number of hours na yun. Parang maging guide lang siya na yun yung ideal time na kailangan gamitin natin when we are going to teach the topic. No? Yun lang po yung masasabi ko. Okay. So, and I understand na sometimes hindi talaga nasasakto na 3 hours no kasi may limitation tayo sa mga online class. Kumbaga parang ano lang po siya, ideal guide para doon sa mga items na gagawin po natin. Yun po.
Okay, Sir Adrian, thank you.
Welcome po, Ma'am Sara.
All right, thank you very much, Ma'am Sarah, for your inspiring question. Meron pa po bang mga tanong regarding po sa topic natin? Or meron pa pong kayo gustong i-open up? Huwag na pong mahiya. Yan. Yan, may nagtanong po sa akin. Sir Adrian, nandiyan po kayo? Are you there?
Yes po, sir.
Sir, question daw po. Paano daw po pag mathematical equations like differential equations or algebra? Saan po siya papasok na definition or description? Ayan, po.
Technically, sir, when it comes to ano po, sir? Algebra.
Ano po yung mathematical
kapag more on mathematical, sir, ang pinakamababa na doon ay for me is application. Dahil ang pinakamababang level na gagawin mo is to apply the principle and concepts that you learn. For example, you're going to apply the concepts that you learn from yung binomial, mga perfect binomials, for example, like that, binomial expansion and etc. Yung basic principle of exponents. So technically, ang pinakamababa na is application. Depende na lang kung i-upgrade ng teacher into a higher level of thinking like synthesis or evaluation. Something like that, sir. Kapag ka-evaluation, pwedeng, ang gagawin mo, paghahanapin mo yung bata ng mali. Ano yung mali doon sa equation? Ano yung dapat gawin doon sa left side ng equation para mag-resolve siya into the right side of the equation, which is separated by an equal sign. That's my answer to that question.
Okay, thank you very much. Meron pa pong isa nag-raise ng hand, si Ma'am Jovi. Ayan, may question po sa inyo, Sir Adrian.
Hello po. Hello, Sir Adrian.
Hello po, Ma'am Jovi.
Oo, kanina yung pinakita mo dun sa is yung number of questions. Parehas sila ng points, di ba?
Parehas po ng, ano po, Ma'am Jovi?
Yung point system, di ba? Yung knowledge, yung analysis. So, same points, di ba? Tig to 2 points. What if...
Sige po, Ma'am.
What if, kung halimbawa, problem solving siya?
Okay.
So, di ba, kailangan ba same number pa rin ng points? Kasi minsan, di ba, pagka problem solving, mas mataas yung points. So, alin nyo i-consider doon? Yung points or yung number of questions?
Okay, ganito, Ma'am Jovi. Doon po sa pointing system po, it is in the authority of the faculty to provide kung gaano kataas yung score na binibigay niya. Technically, Ma'am Jovi, kapag ang question is knowledge, ang binibigay lang natin sa kanyang point ay mas mababa. Okay? Pero kapag when we go in a higher level, for example, is yung, let's say, synthesis, mga design, meron tayo mga pinagdadaanan ng level. For example, kailangan maalala ng bata yung formula. Ma-identify niyo yung mga given. And then ma-apply niyo yung formula. Diyan na po ngayon papasok, Ma'am Jovi, yung ating rubrics po para doon sa mga problem solving na question. And we are in the authority po para bigyan kung gaano kataas na score ang ibibigay natin sa bata kapag naabot niya yung anong level doon sa rubric po natin. For example, kung makaabot lang siya sa, let's say, yung na-identify lang niya yung formula, baka pwedeng bigyan lang natin siya ng, let's say, 6 points, mga ganun po. Kung hanggang doon lang siya nakaabot sa pag-identify ng mga given, bigyan lang natin siya ng 2 points. Ganun po, Ma'am Jovi.
What I mean is yung distribution ng question. Di ba kanina, nagbigay ka ng formula, paano i-distribute yung number of questions.
Apa.
Yun yung inaano ko na kailangan ba equal, ba kanina, di ba, may 32%, may ganon.
Apa.
So ano yung yung percentage o yung score base dun sa ano?
Ganito po yun, Ma'am Jovi. Yung 32% po kanina na pinakita ko, for example, is topic A po, ibig sabihin 32% ng lahat ng questions included in your exam, it should be coming from that topic. Ganun po yan. 32% po ng questions ay manggagaling sa topic na yun. So ibig sabihin, kung 50 questions, kukunin mo po yung 32% nun, and then lahat ng yung na-compute mong number na yun, yun yung number ng items na manggagaling sa topic A lang po. Puro doon lang po siya nakafocus. Dun sa topic A lang po na yan, Ma'am Jovi. And then we are to classify kung ito ba ay magpo-fall under knowledge. Kunyari, kung gusto mo, lagyan mo ng 1 sa knowledge, number 2 sa comprehension, 2 sa comprehension, 3 sa analysis. Ganun po, Ma'am Jovi. Tayo na po balang mag-distribute po. Ganun po.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma'am Jobs. We have another question here from the Computer Engineering Department, Dr. Mona Lisa Jimenez.
Hello, sir. Dinig po ba?
Yes po.
Yes po, Ma'am.
Bali, Sir Adrian, tatanong ko lang po, kapag yung type ng question is true or false, saang level siya magpo-fall?
Kapag po ang question ay true or false po. Kapag true or false po, Ma'am Mona, pwede po siyang mag-fall under evaluation po. Kasi po when we are...
Sige, sir.
Kapag po kasi pag po kasi true or false, technically, yung bata is naghahanap siya ng mali doon sa question or if he is going to consider it right. Ganun po. Pwede rin po siyang mag-fall doon sa analysis wherein bini-breakdown niya yung content noong question para mas maintindihan niya yung thought noong statement na ibinigay po. Ganun po, Ma'am.
Okay, sir. So, ibig sabihin, tama naman po na sa analysis ko nilalagay yung mga true or false.
Correct po, Ma'am Mona.
Okay, sige. Thank you po.
Thank you po.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Manalisa Menes. Another question from the Computer Engineering Department, Engineer Alberto Cruz Jr.
Hello, Sir Adrian.
Ay, hello, sir.
Sir, doon naman pala yung question ni Ma'am Joby. For
Yes.
example, meron tayong 5 items. 5
Okay,
questions. Tapos
Okay.
lahat ng question ko problem solving. 10
Okay.
points ang isa. Ano ang ilalagay
Yes.
ko sa TOS? Sa number of items, 5 lang o yung points? Para magkaintindihan na. Para 50
kung
points
ano
kasi siya. 50 points
Okay.
tapos 5 lang yung items.
Ganito,
5
sir.
question lang.
Before, I think mas magiging madali, sir, kung bago ka mag-decide ng points, ang mas
Naka-rubrics,
maganda,
sir,
sir,
naka-rubrics.
identify mo muna yung number ng items. And then later, doon ka na lang mag-decide doon sa points, sir, sa distribution ng points mo. Para, kasi medyo labas na siya, sir, doon sa TOS. Kumbaga yung TOS kasi, ang objective niyan is kung ilang items ang manggagaling sa topic A. Kunyari, lumalabas, when we computed the time, lumabas is 50% pala nung kabuong oras mo sa buong lahat ng topics na tinuro mo gagaling sa topic A. So, ibig sabihin, 50% coming from all your items should be coming from the topic. And then later, sir, tsaka mo na lang pagdesisyonan kung ilang points yung iaalat mo para dun sa mga items na yon. Ganun, Sir Albert.
Bale, sa halimbawa, 5 yung topics, tigta 10 points sila nilagay ko kasi pare-parehas naman 3 hours.
Okay,
Items
3
nilagay
hours.
ko.
Okay. So, ibig sabihin, sir,
1.
Okay, 5 yung topics mo. Ilan yung kabuuang question mo sa buong examination?
5 rin, sir. Ang kasi limit siguro,
okay.
nagugulan lang kasi kami, sir, kung points
Okay.
ba or items. Kasi kung items nga,
Items,
5 lang
sir.
yun. Items lang
So,
yan.
Yes, sir. Kumbaga kung 5 yung ang target mo is total items mo is 5, and then lumalabas yung lahat ng topics na 5 na yon is equal time spent para sa lahat. Lumalabas, sir, tigi-tigisa sila.
Bali,
Ganun,
items, sir, yung ilalagay. Hindi,
Yes.
wala tayong pakialam doon sa points.
Wala, sir. Sa items lang.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, welcome, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Alberto Cruz Jr. for that question. Another question, Sir Adrian. Kaya pa ba? Kaya pa ba, Sir
Sige po,
Adrian?
sir. Go
So
lang,
another
sir.
question, another question here from the Computer Engineering Department. Sir, sa akin pong question, paano po kung programming or program like mobile development sa exam po namin na ginagawang quiz, saan po siya mag-fall?
Okay. So kung programming, sir, typically, meron lang akong question. Kapag ka ba ikaw ay nagpo-programming, meron ka bang mga ina-apply na basic concept or principle? Kung meron kang mga basic concept or principle na ina-apply, bago ka maka-arrive dun sa program na objective mo, technically that will fall under application. Okay? So that is one thing. And then, if ang gagawin nating question is gagawa tayo ng program, and then we try our student to figure out kung ano yung mali dun sa program na ginawa, and then kung ano yung dapat na nandoon, technically it will fall under evaluation. Ganun po, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Hope na sagot po yung question ni Sir Adrian. Wala na po bang tayong question? Kay Ma'am Mona po ba? May question pa po kayong follow-up? Naka-raise po yung hand.
Sir, di lang na ibaba. Wait po.
Okay po. Okay po. So basically, that's all. Siguro wala na pong habol kasi we already have limited time kasi 2:45 na po in the afternoon. So as we continue on the program, may we call on the head of the Mechanical Engineering Department, Engineer Amparo Cecilia Sarmiento, for the closing remarks as well as the presentation of the certificates.
Okay, sir. Thank po sa lahat. So before we formally close this webinar, I would just like to present po yung certificate of appreciation to Engineer Adrian C. Flores. So let me read the citation. Bulacan State University, College of Engineering, City of Malolos, Bulacan, awards the Certificate of Appreciation to Engineer Adrian C. Flores for sharing his knowledge and expertise in this webinar entitled Creating Table of Specifications for Term Examinations with the Faculty of the College of Engineering, given this 18th day of April 2022 at the Bulacan State University. Signed by Maria Magdalena Vigat Dula, the Dean of the College of Engineering. So, on behalf of the College of Engineering, Sir Adrian, we thank you for sharing a very detailed discussion po with regards to the creation of the table of specifications. And hopefully, everyone is able to um, review or maybe remember po yung mga topics and the suggestions given by Engineer Flores in creating po our midterm examinations. If ever man po na since medyo nahuli yung ating webinar and we already have our prepared midterm examinations is magawa po natin pa rin yung table of specifications and probably improve our examination questions po sa ating final exam. And yun lang po. Thank you po for attending this webinar.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Ampi, and that's all for today. Thank you very much for those who nakasama namin ngayon. Hope you find enlightenment regarding our program. Again, this is Engineer Lecualesa Navarra. Thank you very much, and we're signing off. Oh, may habol pa daw po. Before we matapos daw po ay ano muna tayo. May photo op pa po pala. Ayan. Photo op pa daw po. Sabi ni Sir, may humabol eh. Sabi ko, akala ko lusot na ako eh. Ayan. Sir RJ. Oh, ayan, photo ops na. May humabol eh. Sir, photo. Nilusot ko na nga para hindi ako makita eh. Yeah. Sir
Ganda mo dyan.
RJ.
Sa picture.
Open
Pabukas na lang. Pabukas na lang po ng camera. Huwag na po kayo mahiya. Ayan. Don't be shy. Hindi ako shy. Kasama ko ang aking mga pet corgi. Ayan. Halatang halata sa background. Sensya na po daw ako nakapaglinis.
Hindi makita yung kabok.
Ayan po, okay. So, ito lang po ba?
Meron pa yan. Wait ka lang. Yung iba nagpa-foundation lang. Iba nagpapa,
Sige po. Hintayin na po
Hindi
na.
na makita yan.
Yan. May mga nagpapapogi lang at saka papaganda.